The bus lurched through rain-slicked streets of South London, windows fogged with the breath of weary commuters. Leo pressed the folded slip of paper against his thigh, feeling its phantom weight through cheap denim. 6 numbers. A line of ink on pulp that had just rearranged the architecture of his future. He'd checked it 12 times, once at the newsagent's, twice on the pavement outside, 9 more on the ride home. Each verification a fresh jolt of electric disbelief. They matched. Every single one. He wanted to shout, to grab the old woman beside him and press the ticket into her gnarled hand and say, "Look what the world just did." Instead he sat still, jaw tight, a smile fighting to break through his mask of composure. Outside, the rain hammered harder, washing grime off brick terraces and council blocks, turning the city into a wet, gleaming promise. In his jacket pocket, the ticket lay against his heart. The flat was a basement conversion in Streatham, 2 rooms that perpetually smelled of damp carpet and Clara's lavender air freshener. They'd moved in together 6 months ago. A leap of hope financed by his student loan and her part-time shifts at a bookshop. IKEA furniture, bare walls, a future that always felt like something you had to claw for with both hands. Until today. He turned the key in the lock, the click sharp in the narrow hallway. Inside, lights blazed. Clara sat at the small kitchen table, a half-empty mug of tea cooling in front of her. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a severe ponytail, and he knew that look, the tightening around her mouth, the flatness in her eyes, but tonight he was too buoyant to read it. "Clara, you won't believe what happened." She didn't look up. "I know you didn't go to the careers fair today." The air in the room shifted, cooling. He blinked. "The careers fair? No, listen, I have to tell you something incredible. I called your phone. It went straight to voicemail. I waited 3 hours, Leo. 3 hours in that stuffy hall talking to recruiters who looked at me like I was wasting their time while you were... Where? Where were you?" He pulled the ticket from his pocket, paper crinkling as he held it out. "I was at the shop. I bought a ticket and I won. Clara, I won. Look." She glanced at it, a brief flicker of her gray eyes, then back to his face. Expression unchanged. "You're still not listening. This isn't a joke. I can't keep doing this, carrying us both while you drift around with your head in some fantasy world. We have rent due in 2 weeks. I'm behind on my shifts because I've been covering for you. And you come home waving a lottery ticket like it's a solution to anything." "It is a solution." His voice cracked. He tried to laugh, but it came out thin. "Clara, it's the jackpot. Millions. We can pay the rent for the rest of our lives." She stood, chair scraping against linoleum. "You think money fixes everything? You think waving a piece of paper makes up for the fact that you can't hold down a job, that you let me carry all the weight while you write poetry in your notebook and pretend the real world doesn't exist? I'm tired, Leo. I'm tired of being the responsible one." "I'm not pretending," he said, words sticking in his throat. "I won. This changes everything." She reached past him and grabbed his jacket from the hook by the door. Then his backpack, still half-packed from the morning. She thrust them into his arms. "Then go. Go live in your new world. But don't come back here expecting me to wait. You need to learn what it means to actually try." Cold air from the hallway seeped in. He stood frozen, the ticket still in his hand, his belongings pressed against his chest. "You're throwing me out? I'm giving you a lesson." Her voice was steady, but he caught the faint tremor beneath it. "You'll thank me later. When you've figured out how to be a man." He opened his mouth. The words were there. Asterisk, "It's real, I'm rich, we can be anything," asterisk, but they lodged in his throat, tangled with the betrayal he saw in her face. She didn't believe him. She didn't even look at the ticket. She saw only what she had already decided. A boy who couldn't grow up. So he left. The door closed with a soft click, and he stood in the rain, shoulders hunched, the ticket wet and fragile against his palm. He did not look back. He walked to the end of the street, then to the bus stop, and he did not cry. Not yet. That would come later, in a cheap hotel room on the Edgware Road. When the weight of what had just happened, the winning, the losing, the hollow space where home used to be, finally sank in. But in that moment, standing in the rain, he made a decision. He would not tell her. He would buy the flat in Bloomsbury, close to the campus library he loved, a place with high ceilings and windows that faced the sun. He would walk past her in the student union and feel the phantom weight of her gaze, and he would say nothing. She had wanted him to learn a lesson. He would learn it, but not the one she intended. Chapter 2. The silence that follows. The rain had stopped by the time Leo reached the all-night cafe on Old Kent Road. He sat in the corner, the winning ticket pressed against his chest like a second skin, a cup of tea cooling untouched. The numbers were still there: 11, 17, 23, 34, 41, 45, each one a future he had mapped with Clara. Now they felt like a sentence etched in ink. He scratched the sum on a napkin. £8,412,387. It should have ignited something: joy, relief, a giddy rush. Instead, it hollowed him out. Her voice echoed, "You'll thank me later." A bitter laugh escaped, thin as smoke. He folded the ticket into his wallet, ordered another tea, and stared at the window. He would not call her. He would not grovel. A mile away, Clara woke to a silence that pressed against her ears. The flat was still, too still. She padded to the bathroom. His toothbrush still there. His copy of The Great Gatsby on the bedside table, spine cracked. A flicker of unease, then she smothered it. "He'll be back by dinner," she told her flatmate Sasha over toast. "A week without me, and he'll beg." Sasha said nothing, just buttered her bread and watched the rain streak the window in long silver veins. 2 days later, Leo sat in a bank manager's office on Fleet Street. The verification was swift: phone calls, signatures, a handshake that carried new weight. "Mr. Harper," the manager said, and the name sounded foreign. Leo requested a banker's draft for a flat in Bloomsbury. Outside, the sun was harsh, cutting through the grime of the city. He bought a newspaper, circled an ad for a 2-bedroom on Marchmont Street, and felt nothing but the dull churn of survival. The purchase took 3 hours. The estate agent, a woman in a charcoal suit, blinked when he produced the draft. The flat was open plan, floor-to-ceiling windows that caught the afternoon light, a balcony overlooking a private garden that felt like a secret. He stood in the empty living room that evening, the London skyline bleeding gold, and unpacked his duffel bag. A few shirts, his worn copy of Fitzgerald, the lottery stub. He placed the stub in a drawer. He did not call Clara. A week passed. Clara texted twice, once about his laptop, once about a scarf she'd left behind. No reply. Her voicemail went to a generic mailbox, a robotic voice that offered no comfort. She checked the library, the quad, the student union. Nothing. Her friend Priya said. "Maybe you were too harsh." Clara snapped. "I was teaching him a lesson." That night she dreamed of Leo holding a tower of cash, his face a mask. She woke with cold dread pooling in her stomach. 2 weeks after the breakup she saw him. The main courtyard of UCL. He was leaning against a pillar, talking to a professor, laughing at something she couldn't hear. He wore a new leather jacket, impossible on their student budget. His posture was straight, his eyes clear. He saw her, gave a brief nod, and turned back to the professor. She stood frozen, waiting for him to approach. He didn't. He walked away, the professor gesturing at some architectural detail, and Leo did not look back once. The lesson she had intended seemed to be teaching itself to someone else. Another week passed. In a crowded pub near campus, Clara sat with Priya and Sasha, nursing a half-empty pint. A friend from economics, Mark, leaned in over the noise. "Did you hear about your ex? Someone from the lottery office told my dad. He won the jackpot. Over 8 million. Clara's blood ran cold. She forced a laugh. "That's a mistake." But the image of the leather jacket flickered in her mind, sharp and undeniable. She excused herself, stepped outside into the damp night, and dialed his number. It rang, then clicked to voicemail. She left a shaky message. "Leo, I know. We need to talk. Please." That evening in his new flat, Leo played the message on speaker. His face was stone. He watched the lights of the city flicker through the window, then deleted it. He poured a glass of water, drank it slowly, and stood by the balcony door. The hum of London rose from the streets, indifferent. Her words from that night echoed. "There's no coming back if you leave now," he whispered to himself. "I didn't leave. You threw me out." He pulled the lottery stub from the drawer, held it for a moment, the paper cool and smooth, then put it back. He picked up The Great Gatsby, turned to a dog-eared page. So we beat on boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. He closed the book and set it down. The past was a door he had shut. Or so he believed. Chapter 3. The Weight of Knowing. Clara woke to a silent phone. The morning light was thin and gray, filtering through the cheap curtains of the flat she had once shared with Leo. Her head throbbed from a restless night. She reached for her mobile before her eyes were fully open. No notifications. No missed calls. No messages. She checked the call log. 7 attempts. The last one had connected to his voicemail, her own voice still vivid in her memory. Shaky, desperate, humiliating. Leo, I know. We need to talk. Please. The word please clung to her tongue like ash. Sasha found her in the kitchen, standing before the open fridge, a half-eaten apple in her hand. She had been holding it for 10 minutes without taking a bite. He saw my name, Clara said without turning. He knows I know. Why won't he answer? Sasha leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Maybe he needs time. He's had 2 weeks. Maybe he's not coming back. Clara set the apple down. The flat felt smaller than it had the day before. The walls seemed to press inward, holding his absence like a held breath. She could not wait for him to call. She had to find him. University College London pulsed with its late morning rhythm. Students spilled across the main courtyard, clutching coffee cups and textbooks. Clara skipped her tutorial, the first time in 3 years, and walked the campus like a ghost, scanning faces, searching for the one she had thrown away. She checked the library, the old refectory, the shaded benches near the quad. Nothing. She found a friend from the economics department, a gangly boy named Mark who always had gossip before it was news. Have you seen Leo? She asked, keeping her voice flat. Mark looked at her with something like pity. He's not been coming to lectures. Rumor is he bought a flat near Marchmont Street. Paid cash. The words hit her like a slap. She remembered her own voice that night, sharp and cruel. You can't even afford the deposit on a shoebox. Now he owned a flat in Bloomsbury. Cash. She scribbled the address on a scrap of paper, folded it into her pocket, and left the campus without a word. Marchmont Street was quiet in the early afternoon. The building was sleek and modern, glass and steel, expensive planters framing the entrance. It smelled of new money. Clara buzzed flat 3B. No answer. She waited 10 minutes. 20. The winter sun was weak, and she shivered in her thin jacket. A woman with a pram exited the building, holding the door. Clara slipped inside before it closed. The hallway smelled of fresh carpet and polish. She found the door to 3B, a clean white slab with a brass number. She knocked softly, then harder. Silence. She sat on the floor back against the wall and waited. An elderly neighbor peered out from across the hall. You lost love. I'm waiting for my boyfriend, Clara said. The neighbor gave her a long, unreadable look, then closed the door. Leo rounded the corner at 4:30, a takeaway coffee in his hand, fresh from a meeting with his solicitor. He saw her sitting on the step. She stood up, brushing off her jeans. For a long moment they simply looked at each other. He was calm, unreadable. She was trembling. You got my message, she said. It was not a question. He took a sip of his coffee. I did. Then why didn't you call? He shrugged. I didn't see the point. The words were flat, clinical, as if he were discussing a math problem. Clara felt something crack inside her chest. I only wanted to teach you a lesson, she said, the words tumbling out. I never meant for it to go this far. I was scared you were wasting your potential. I was going to let you come back in a week. It was supposed to be a wake-up call. He listened, his face unchanged. When she finished, he spoke. You threw me out on the street at midnight. You told me there was no coming back. I didn't have a chance to tell you about the ticket because you didn't give me one. You had already decided I was a failure. His voice was steady, almost surgical. Clara's hands twisted in her lap. So it's true. The lottery. You won. He nodded. 8.4 million. I bought this flat the next day. I didn't plan to hide it. I just wanted some space. But then I realized I didn't miss you. I missed the idea of you. The version of you who would have been happy for me. That's not fair. I loved you. I was trying to help you. Leo leaned forward, his eyes holding hers. You wanted me to be a certain kind of man, but you never asked what kind of man I wanted to be. The minute I didn't fit, you threw me away. Now that I have money, you're here. What am I supposed to think? Clara wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I don't care about the money. I care about you. Come back. We can work this out. I'll change. She reached for his hand. He pulled back gently. I don't believe you. And even if you meant it, you broke something in me that night. When you slammed that door, I felt something die. I can't be the man you wanted me to be, Clara. That man is gone. He stood up. I'm sorry, but I have to live my own life now. She followed him outside onto Marchmont Street. The winter sun was sinking behind the rooftops, casting long shadows. Leo, she called. You're just being cruel. You're punishing me. He stopped, turned halfway. I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting myself. You wanted a lesson. Here it is. Actions have consequences. The girl I loved would have trusted me. You didn't. So she can't come back because she doesn't exist anymore. He continued walking. She stood alone on the street, the city noise rising around her, buses, laughter, the hum of London. She felt the weight of 8 million pounds she would never touch, and the weight of the man she had lost, and she knew for the first time that he was not coming back. An hour later, Leo closed the door to his flat and leaned against it. His hands were shaking. He poured a glass of whiskey, stepped onto the balcony, and watched the lights of London flicker to life. He did not cry. Instead, he pulled out the tattered copy of The Great Gatsby, found the page where Gatsby reaches for the green light. He read the line aloud. Asterisk, he had come a long way to this blue lawn, and his dream must have seemed so close that he could hardly fail to grasp it. Asterisk. He closed the book. But he did fail, he whispered, because he wanted the wrong thing. He finished the whiskey, set the glass in the sink, and left the book on the counter. He was done with ghosts. The city hummed below him, indifferent and alive, and he was a man who had everything except a heart that still beat for anyone.